I will put today in Canvas a Google Drive that you can open. And the easiest thing about that is just to drag your movie over. So again, I'm not as up on Chromebooks, but you should still be able to drag that folder or wherever you've put the Screencastify. Screencastify automatically will put your recordings in a Google Drive separate that will have a folder that says Screencastify. So that should be a really easy move over to Google. You can put and have as many people in your TikTok as you want. It doesn't have to just be you. You can have, if you're wanting to show me how popular you are, you can have crowds of people loving and adoring fans. Because remember, that's your goal. Your goal is to get me to ask you to come to my salon. And Callie, your nails are amazing. That's from StareNet. Sorry. They're amazing. Even though I don't like the ones that are all different colors, I don't know how. Oh, that just sends my OCD over the edge. But those are pretty awesome. Sparkly. Yes.
Sophie does that.
Oh.
I can have this one be different.
No, I can't have any.
That one can be different.
I can't even wear different socks. Aren't they pretty, though? That's really pretty.
That's all I wear.
What?
Different socks.
See,
No.
I rarely wear matching socks. These look the same, but they're different.
No, my OCD does not allow that to happen.
I've got a
I need my socks.
Okay.
Yesterday we were taking Adrian home, and we weren't. The Jeep was parked backwards, so we thought we were getting into the sides that we usually get in, but we were on the opposite side. So I made my dad stop at a stop sign so I could switch, because the whole time I was sitting there, I was like, "This is wrong."
Don't like it.
It's
Nope.
Sheldon.
Can't do it. Yep. I'm same. I'm very much. Okay, so look for that Google Drive. It'll be in Canvas. It should be, if you use Screencastify, it should be an easy move over from that because it automatically saves it in Google Drive. If you're doing it on your phone, you still should be able to either email that to yourself and then upload it to Google Drive. It should be fairly easy. Yes.
I think you might also be able to add text in like just regular photos.
I think you can. Like if you're using your phone and you know how to do that, you should be able to do that. If you do that with your Snapchat and all that stuff, you can do that. So, all right. So let's look on page 11. And that is where we ended with Rousseau and his noble savage. Again, we're building on, and Rousseau, I think if I didn't emphasize in the lecture on Tuesday, that idea of a noble savage is taking those two thoughts of Hobbes, men are brutes, Locke, men are good, and kind of putting them together. And what Rousseau is going to add is what makes man this way, the savage part, is materialism. If there weren't this need to accumulate things or to somehow say that your worth is equivalent to the things you accumulate, none of this would be happening. All right. Okay, our next guy is Denis Diderot. Did I give a Diderot? Anybody a Diderot here? Because he's pretty important.
I have a question.
Do you think you're Diderot?
No, my guy, is he not in the notes?
What's his name?
Olympe de something.
She. It's a she. Yes, she is. You got the only female, I think.
Oh.
Yes, it's a she.
Okay.
She is in there,
Okay.
and she is in your textbook.
Okay.
We don't spend a lot of time on females, mostly because female. But yeah, she is important. And forward, spoiler, she gets her head chopped off in the French Revolution, but neither saying.
I saw her in that chapter 14 Ground Box where they're talking about the sexist monks.
Yeah.
Me too.
And it starts with a classic in misogyny.
Yeah, if you don't know the word misogyny is the hatred of women. College Board uses that word a lot. If you do not know that misogyny is the hatred of women, that is a word that you need to know. And it will, what?
That was not good. I did not enjoy that.
I know. It's hard to read those.
I was sitting on my couch and I refused to do it.
Like, it's hard to read those.
I just don't know how to answer those questions.
I know.
nicely.
And here's the other part that happens with those types of things as well. that kind of like, I don't even want to circle that answer. And it happens a lot on questions about white European superiority. That is often the answer to a lot of questions, especially when we get to imperialism, and your little brain just does not want to answer. And those questions are often missed because students don't like, ooh, I don't want to circle that. I don't want anybody to think but that's the answer. It's the answer. And that the misogynistic, that's the answer. And it is hard. And I think, I'm trying to think how many classes ago it was that my young women in my class got really upset and said, is there a word for the hatred of men? And there is. It'll take you a while to find it. There is a word for the hatred of men. It's not as easy to find as misogyny. It takes you a couple of digs down the Google spiral. It might be easier to find now.
I think it's like, on Twitter, when it's like a man will say something and then all the replies are just like, no. That's what it is. That's the hatred of men.
Yeah. It's usually well, actually, the whole man explaining thing. Well, actually, no, actually, you're incorrect. Okay. So Diderot. Mr. Diderot, and again, this is a French guy. Please be really specific with this one because the College Board likes to move around with this one. He compiles the encyclopedia, right? He doesn't write it. He begins compiling information and creates the encyclopedia. And the reason he's so important is the greatest and most representative of the philosophers, that this idea, he himself is not the great thinker, but he gathers all of this information to make it easily accessible to the general population, help popularize the views, emphasize science and reason while criticizing religion, intolerance, injustice, and tyranny. And 5E is the most important part of this and why he gets lumped in with these philosophers. Sought to teach people to think critically and objectively. The idea of that encyclopedia is to think. And you should know the encyclopedia is banned in France and placed by the Pope on the index of forbidden books. So what Diderot does is he kind of sets out this calling card type of thing, give me information. And his encyclopedia had everything in it, everything from how you make a chair, how do you make glass, to the thoughts on public education. The encyclopedia becomes, are you all right, Ben?
Yeah.
Okay. The encyclopedia becomes the way that you acknowledge education. So, Ben, did you get your braces off?
Yeah.
That's what's different. Congratulations. You got braces off. So the big thing for people, and think about the oldest person, the oldest relative that you have, and the significance and importance of encyclopedias. They should have them somewhere. They used to be prominently displayed. As a mom, my age, you could not leave the hospital without an encyclopedia salesperson handing you something to buy encyclopedias, of which you proudly bought, and every year you got an annual that talked about the date. Yes?
The kids can't read that.
No, but that's what you have. They give you a child set. You get a child set of
You still
encyclopedias.
can't read.
Yes, but that's what you do.
Here, take something.
I guarantee.
It's like my bike. I got a bike for my baptism gift for my mama, like a full bike.
Holy
Yeah.
Ghost
I
is
wasn't-
with
It was
you
like a
now.
human baby.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
can't ride a bike.
Yeah, I thought it
The
was a
Holy Ghost is
tricycle.
with you.
It was not a tricycle. It was like a bike without training wheels.
Okay,
You
well,
have God in you now.
yes. So, Mr. Diderot, encyclopedia. Again, this encyclopedia is what represents everything in the Enlightenment, that education is accessible, to critically think about things, to have one place to look at it. And Mr. Diderot would have been very proud to have had his book banned both in France and by the Pope, right? That's kind of a mark of a badge of Enlightenment strength. Our next guy writes his book on crimes and punishment. And this again becomes a really important enlightened ideal, this idea to humanize criminal law based on concept of reason and equality before the law. That punishment should be based rationally on the damage done to society and should not be linked to any religious concept of sin. So how many Les Mis fans do I have out there? Okay. Going to prison forever because you stole what? Bread. What the Marquis, and the Marquis again, Marquis is a title of nobility, a high-ranking title of nobility. That's not his first name. So again, he is a person of great privilege. He is also Italian, so we're kind of moving out of the whole French place. But his idea says stealing a loaf of bread does what harm to society? Relatively small. It hurts the baker, and you should base the punishment on the hurt to society, not the idea that this is a moral sin or moral outrage and you go to prison for the rest of your life because you stole something. Yes.
So their concept is it doesn't hurt society, but we're making it a law based off what the Ten Commandments are.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's what all it is. You also should understand that that is also based on where your ranking is in society, right? That you need to teach poor people not to steal in a much harsher way than you do wealthy people, right? That there's a separate set of laws. So he says that you should base penalties on the harm to society, not any kind of religious type of mentality. He's opposed to the death penalty. He opposed torture to extract confessions. Remember, we talked about that a lot, that the only way these people got sentenced to death is if they confessed, and we had someone whose whole job it was to get someone to confess and torture them into a confession. This is our first look at this word, enlightened despots. And this will be the second part of our chapter that we're going to spend the next 2 days looking at. An enlightened despot, we'll talk about, but he influenced these enlightened despots, Frederick the Great, Catherine the Great, Joseph II, who are all going to ban torture. Catherine's going to say, let's just use it for specific reasons. But that is really important, again, because he will be another enlightened figure that actually has quite a few people that will support him. On the next page, we have economic theory, of which we meet Francois Cuisenet, who is the leader of the physiocrats. And those are the group of people that opposed mercantilist policies, sought to reform the existing agrarian system by instituting laissez-faire. And have we talked about laissez-faire? Laissez-faire is hands-off. Hands-off. Like, you let the government keeps its hands off agriculture. And if you do that, then agriculture will be successful. The most important economic theorist in the whole wide world, in the history of the whole wide world, and the history of economic theory is Adam Smith. Did I give somebody Adam Smith? Okay. Yeah, this is a small class. I didn't get to give a lot. Adam Smith writes The Wealth of Nations. You need to know that book. You need to know Adam Smith for this class. You need to know Adam Smith for next year in APUSH. And you need to know Adam Smith when you get into, obviously, economics and even government. I always write Adam Smith's name with the S as a dollar sign. It kind of helps you connect that with money. He is an economist. He is and wrote The Wealth of Nations, which is the Bible of capitalism. Adam Smith is English. He comes again from a system based on capitalism. He really becomes important in the United States. Refined and expanded laissez-faire philosophy believe the economy is governed by the natural laws of supply and demand. That's the basis of all the economy. So this is what Adam Smith believes, and this is, I think, a way to give you an example that you can use in your real world. Ben, you're going to have to go with me. So when you go shopping and you see the sales, and the best sales are always where? In the way back of the store, all that last leftover stuff all crumbled up and jumbled up. And you're looking in those sales things. You will find two things. You will find, I used to use orange, but I think everybody likes orange still now, but I'm still going to use orange because I don't like orange. You will find the ugly orange shirt in every size range, from 000 to 10X. It's there for $2. Why? Because nobody likes the ugly orange shirt. And Adam Smith says, supply and demand will tell you. What are you laughing at? I know. I'm talking orange. I'm talking about orange. I'm talking about orange, like an orange. That's not orange. That's burnt. That's not orange. It's like marigold. That's not orange. No, I'm talking orange. So that ugly orange shirt is there. Now, for those of you that have never worked in retail, or for those of you that sell things to Plato's Closet and you'll always wonder why they give you back more than they sell, it's because there's a little number on every single tag. Don't try to look at it now, but you can go home and look in the tag of any type of clothing you have, and you will find what's an RN number, a retail number. It's a number. And you look at that number and you can tell how old the clothing is. It tells you everything about the clothing. Yes, it's there. I promise. For that reason. And I'll tell you why that reason is. So now on that ugly orange shirt is an RN number that the manufacturer of that shirt can look and see how many of those he sold. Didn't sell very many. What am I going to do about that orange ugly shirt? I'm going to stop making that orange ugly shirt, right? That's Adam Smith's supply and demand. Nobody wanted that shirt. Stop making that shirt. On the flip side of that, you go back to the back part and you find the cutest shirt ever in the whole wide world. That's $2, and there's two sizes, 00000, that wouldn't fit on your big toe, or too big. Why? Because everybody liked that shirt, right? That's Adam Smith's supply and demand, that the people will create the supply and demand, and the government should not. That's capitalism, and that's what Adam Smith says. Believe the economy is governed by the natural laws of supply and demand. You make it, people buy it, you make more of it. You make it, nobody wants it, you stop making it. That is a free market economy determined by capitalism, as opposed to communism that dictates how much and what you make. You're going to make 20 of these, you're going to make 20 of these. And it doesn't matter how much they sell, how little they sell, you're going to just keep making that much. All right? D, in a free market economy, competition will encourage producers to manufacture most efficiently in order to sell higher quality, lower cost than competitors. And that's, again, what a capitalist society does. And especially in this global digital world where you can leave feedback about every simple thing that you buy in the whole wide world and everybody reads it, that becomes more important. That not only do I manufacture something that is cost efficient, but that my product is good and people want to buy it, and I hit my stars on Amazon. Government regulation only interferes with this national self-governing style. Adam Smith says government should stay out of the economy. Stay out. They should not be participating. They should not be a part of the economy. The economy is set to run in the best way when people make those decisions and people buy things that they want and they don't want. What don't you get, Ben?
No.
Okay. All right. So that's Adam Smith. Women in the Enlightenment. Here's the major role that women played in the salon movement. They They were the hostesses with the mostesses. They had parties. That's what a salon is. A salon is a party of intellectuals gathering to talk. And women organized these. They participated in the talk. They were allowed to participate in the conversation. Did I sing on my last one? Pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a little, cheap, 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 talk a lot, pick a little more. Did I not sing? Yes, I did. Okay. That's what these salons are. Women are allowed to participate in these discussions. But please make sure that we understand they are only discussions. None of this moves out of the walls of which they were discussing until we get to the American Revolution, right? The American Revolution is the principles of all this. So, in England, Mary Wollstonecraft promoted political and educational equality for women. She's going to create a school. Her daughter, Mary Shelley, is the person that writes Frankenstein. Yes. Unfortunately, her school will go bankrupt because no one will want to send their daughters to this school because educating women was equated with them losing their femininity, which is why over time, an extended period of time into November 30th, 2021, that smart girls continue to pretend they're dumb so they can get boys. You have to ask yourself, what boy would want a stupid girl? Because I can tell you, that's not a boy that you want. Right, Ben? You don't want a stupid girl. My husband thinks I'm the smartest person in the world, which is another reason why you want to marry somebody that treasures your brilliance and not makes you hide it under a bushel. I don't understand that. And I know every single one of you sitting in here knows somebody that does that. Don't do it. It diminishes who you are. And call them out. Why are you pretending you're so dumb? You got 100 on that algebra quiz. I don't understand that. And you should question anybody that you would attract because you're a giggly airhead. Just saying. It usually doesn't work well. You want someone that is your intellectual equal. Okay. Soapbox of the day. Don't do it. All right. Now we get into the enlightened people that are going to think differently. This is where we're going to meet our first atheists, our skeptical people. And I know I gave somebody one of these atheists because I like throwing out the atheists. I think it was David Hume. Did I give somebody David Hume? I know I gave someone Immanuel Kant. Okay. Oh, somebody didn't get it. I bet that might be Kaylee. All right. So women in the Enlightenment. Few and far between, they got parties. Later in the Enlightenment, they become more skeptical. A skeptic says, show me. A skeptic says, you can't prove that, show it to me. Right? And we have lots of things that we can't show. It is the reason why gravity is still called a theory. Technically, it is the theory of gravitational pull. Why? Because you can't show it. Yes?
So, since it's still a theory,
Mhm.
I don't know why I thought about this, but could I invent, that's my thing, something not named gravity and say, I made this?
Try.
And then patent it? And make
You could try.
billions of dollars off
You
it?
can't patent a theory. You can't patent a theory, but you can try. You can try. Our first, again, is a baron. Another, and please, please, please make sure, as I'm stressing all these titles, these are high-ranking titles. This is not just some noble. This is a high-ranking person. So Baron Paul de Holbach, System of Nature, argued that humans are essentially like machines, completely determined by outside forces. He is an atheist. And he does not believe. So remember, we have agnostics. An agnostic is a skeptic that says you can't show me. You can't prove there is, you can't prove there isn't. An atheist says there is not. Most people that you meet in the modern world that say they're atheists are really agnostics. You can't prove. That's usually their line of questioning. An atheist would never even offer that as a point that you could take. You can't prove or can't prove. Yeah, I don't care. Prove or don't prove. I don't believe. Very few people really are atheists. Most, again, are agnostics. Yes.
So, is a baron? What is like?
The highest title is a baron. Depends on what country you're in as well.
Yeah.
Marquises are up. I mean, they're all high.
Aren't baron and baronesses like on
They're baron and baronesses are the
like king
what?
and queen?
Yep. On page 13, David Hume, again, is a skeptic. The result of sensory experiments, thus human reason could not go beyond what was experienced through the senses. So again, this undermining this idea of reason. Like, men aren't reasonable creatures. We aren't reasonable because we don't understand anything unless we have experienced it, right? Which is something that you kids throw around all the time. You don't even understand. You haven't been through this. Yeah, I wasn't a kid ever. I just came onto the earth as a 50-year-old woman.
You know, in dreams where you fall from like really high, how do I know what that feels like? That's so weird. I've never fallen off a building.
Right.
That's so
David Hume would say that. You can only experience that. And yeah. Everybody else would say reason would tell you that it's a terrifying experience.
right.
And you wouldn't want to do that. Our next one is the progress of the human mind. Identified 9 stages of human progress that already occurred. Again, going to prediction. Rousseau attacks rationalism. And our one person, Immanuel Kant, who is a German philosopher, he is our person that says you can do both. He is a devoutly religious person. He says you can separate, and this is reason, this is the mind. He said you can separate science and morality into 2 separate branches. It's easy. Science should describe nature, but it doesn't provide a path for morality. What's the path for morality? Is your religion. So Immanuel Kant becomes, for this time period, and especially for later people studying theology, Immanuel Kant becomes a really important person in this idea of you can do both. Both can certainly exist. Both can exist in the same place. Categorical imperative was an intuitive instinct placed by God, and reason is a function of the mind and has no content in and of itself. And that, again, is important. So our last thing we're going to look at before we get into our enlightened despots is classical liberalism. So first thing we have to understand is this is not liberalism is uppercase L, not a lowercase l, describing someone's political beliefs. That's not what this is. Liberalism is a set of political beliefs that grow out of the Enlightenment. And every political movement group comes from classical liberalism. And that's just what we call it, this idea of classical liberalism. So we got to understand this before we move into our enlightened despots. So the political outgrowth of Enlightenment is classical liberalism, uppercase L, meaning that it is a proper noun. It is not an adjective that describes your political beliefs. Does that make sense? So an uppercase L means it is a proper noun. It is something. It is not a description of saying you're conservative or liberal. Does that make sense? Okay. Belief in liberty of the individual and equality before the law. This is not democracy. Do not be confused. At no point is anything in this democracy. We are so far away from that. Anytime you hear the word natural rights, your brain should go to 2 places. First place should be John Locke. Second place, classical liberalism. And those natural rights are life, liberty, property. The impact of Locke and Montesquieu clearly evident in the American Constitution and in the French Declaration of the Rights of Man. And Rousseau's idea of the general will influence the French Revolution. Belief in laissez-faire capitalism. Government should not interfere with the economy. It is the opposite of mercantilism. Number one, capitalism is the opposite of mercantilism. Number two, capitalism is the output of the Enlightenment. And Adam Smith and Wealth of Nations. Okay? Yes?
Yeah, French word, laissez-faire, opposite of, right?
Yeah, it's the opposite of mercantilism. Capitalism is the opposite of mercantilism. Belief in progress through reason and education. And that, again, is essentially important. On the top of page 14 are a whole bunch of things that you should recognize that this movement means. Religious toleration, freedom of speech and of the press, just punishment for crimes, and equal treatment before the law. Those should all sound very familiar. You should think it sounds very American. It's very Enlightenment, classical liberalism, which is why you can't put that liberalism on it politically as a lowercase l. Now, remember what we talked about. Anytime that pendulum swings in one way or another way, religion is also going to move in that way. So we moved in Enlightenment to deism, this thinking, reason, rational type of religion, that God made the world, set back, lets it go. We're going to swing to the other way as we move towards the end of Enlightenment, and these new Christian groups are going to come out of this. The secular and deist views of the Enlightenment caused a reaction among some Christian leaders who believed Christian spirituality was on the decline. And so as a result of that, we are going to get these new religions. German Pietism argued for a need of spiritual conversion. Methodism, spiritual regeneration and a moral life that would have someone born again. And again, that word is very specific to these new types of religion. So Catholic faith, Presbyterians, Lutherans, Episcopalians and Church of England do not have this born again thing. It is not anywhere part of their religion, their faith. All of these new beginnings of these religions, it is. Yes.
By born again, do you mean like I think it was, I don't know, but like the karma thing?
No. Born again means that you are either rebaptized or you rededicate your life, or as in my granny's church, you've been backsliding, and now it's time to come up to the altar and sing Just As I Am for 800 hours. Anybody do that? Anybody go to a church? Well, I know my Catholic friends don't, because that doesn't make any sense to you. Yes.
The new version of that,
Just As I Am.
The new version of Just As I Am is Oceans. That church, that you heard that?
Oh, so instead of singing Just As I Am, yeah,
it goes on.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Wait, so
Like, just that song.
the church.
So here's what happens, Maggie. Here's what happens. Let me just explain before you have your questions. So at the end of many religious church services, Baptist, Pentecostal, there is what's called a call to the altar. And that is for people who have, I don't know any other term than backsliding, that you have not been living the way that you should be living. You come forward and then the preacher and the congregation will pray for you to be born again in the Spirit. While that's happening, the rest of the congregation is either praying or singing, just as I am. It is, and I don't mean to diminish it, but that is an important part, and that's where this born again thing comes from. Yes.
Is it like public reconciliation?
Yeah, but in a much different way, in that it happens very, very frequently.
Are you supposed to do it every time you go to church?
No,
Not like you, but they have it all the time.
Oh.
which
You don't go there every time.
no, you don't go up there. It's just offered every time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just how the service ends,
Okay.
and it's offered every
Like,
time.
we didn't do an altar call, but I was like,
There's a yeah.
the rule that everyone has to go.
No, it's just
Okay.
whomever feels that need to have that. But sometimes it's the same people, a lot, a lot, and yeah, a lot. And then you sing that a lot because, like, Betty Sue, you just did this last week. What in the world, girl, happened to you in a week that you got to do this again and make us sing for 45 minutes while my stomach is growling? And I do not mean to diminish it, but it is this, and this is what Methodism is about, this spiritual feeling that when you leave church, we haven't moved very far from when you left, Kimberly. When you leave church, you have this spiritual feeling that the person leading the service, instead of talking to your head, has talked to your heart. That's the simplest way, right? So Puritans, Catholics, Presbyterians, this service is more of a lecture type driven thing instead of a be healed by the Son of God and I'm on fire for Jesus, that kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
How long is your service?
Long,
Oh my God.
long,
Like an hour? Oh.
long. I will tell you. Listen, Maggie, I was not raised Presbyterian. I was not raised Presbyterian. When my husband and I got married, and he's a Catholic, I'm all these other things. I have a very weird, it's the bell getting ready.
Excuse the interruption. Students, there will be a change starting today for lunch. If you bring your lunch or do not eat lunch, you are to report to the gymnasium for lunch period. If you are eating school lunch, you will report to the cafeteria like normal. Also, teachers, please read your email before lunch period today. Thank you.
Okay. So Maggie, we had to find a happy medium for church. He's used to, as he calls it, a program. It's a program. I know how long. So the first time we went to a Baptist church,
No, but that was weird.
it was, and his words are, I'm never going back to that place again. Mostly because of his thing that, what you just said,